input. We can get user input in a number of different ways. We might write our script to have parameters and allow the user to give us data right on the command line. The user may create a variable to make available to our script. But for interactive input, we normally will use the read host commandlet. The read host commandlet waits for the user to type on the keyboard. When they are done typing and press enter, the text they entered is passed as a string to the output of read host. Normally we'll save that in a variable so that we can use their input for some purpose in our script. If you cast the variable it's being assigned to, you can force the user's input to be converted from a string into that data type, such as an integer or a floating point number, to try to ensure that they've given us that. They'll get an error if they try to put in something that does not convert. If we're reading input, we normally want the user to know that we're waiting for input and to know what kind of input to put in. To do that, we normally want to put a prompt up, and read host has a -prompt parameter, and you give that a string and it will print that out first before getting the input. If you want to record a password or other sensitive data where it does not get shown on the screen as the user types, you'll want to use the parameter -as_secure_string. When you use -as_secure_string, the user's text data does not show on the screen. It prints stars instead. And when the data is taken into the script in memory, it is encrypted into a secure string object instead of a standard string object. That secure string object is encrypted in memory, which helps to protect you from viruses that do memory scanning of other processes. The encryption method used is a two-way encryption. It can be decrypted. To decrypt a secure string object, we want to use a method found in the standard system ps5 credential object. The method we want to use is called getNetworkCredential, which will give us back a network credential object, and inside that object will be the unencrypted password. Note that doing this will once again expose you to viruses that can scan memory. The other way to get your input from a user, the only other way really, is if the user creates their data in a file, typically as text. We can then use the getContent commandlet with the path parameter to specify a file to read from, and the text in the file will be returned as a collection of strings from the getContent command, which we could assign to a variable and then process as we see fit. Let's try a couple of examples to see how this works. If we just say read host, there will not be a prompt. The user is unaware that you're waiting for input, and anything they type and terminate with an enter will get turned into a string object, which will be the output of read host. If you don't do something to save this, it will just get displayed and discarded. So normally we want to assign that somewhere, such as to a variable. And normally we'll want to have some kind of a prompt so that the user knows that there's input wanted. Then we can look in the variable and we will find our input as a string. If I didn't want to allow strings, if I only wanted to allow, for example, integers, I would cast my variable to an integer, which forces the input to be converted to integer when it's assigned. If I give an integer, the command works fine, and if I look in $myInput, I will see the integer I gave. If I try to do this input and I don't give it an integer or something that can convert, as a user I will get an error and it will stop. When using the secure string, Your prompt should give them some indication it will be. And of course, we need our parameter -as secure string. Whatever we type won't be displayed. If we try to look at the myInput variable, we get told this is a secure string, you can't see it. The idea being that if we have a password stored this way, we can ask the user to tell us if they know the password, and then we can compare the new secure string they gave us to the one we've stored before, and if they match, we'll know they gave the correct password. In this way, we never decrypt the password. If you should want to decrypt this password to store it somewhere or use it for some purpose, such as checking if it's any good, we need to make an object of type ps_credential, and we need to give it an argument list that has, the intention is some username, but really can be any string. And then the name of the variable that contains our secure string object. The object that comes back from this, our ps_credential object, will have a method that we want to use called getNetworkCredential. It doesn't need any data, so just open and close the parentheses. When we run that method on the ps_credential object, we're going to get back an identity object which has a property in it called password. And we'll see the original text that I typed.